Hello everyone, my name is Norton Holtz, and today I'll be attempting one of those unboxing videos for Devastator. Now, the version that we're looking at here is the Unite Warriors version by Takara Tomy, not to be confused with the Combiner Wars version by Hasbro. Now, Hasbro released Transformers in the US. Takara Tomy, they started off the toys as Diaclone and Microman. They originally tried to release the toys in America as Diacron. Didn't really work out too well. They tried again, but calling it Chronoform. That didn't really work too well. And then the Hassenfield brothers, or Hasbro for short, decided they would take a stab at it. They started releasing the toys in America. But instead of just releasing them as is, they created this whole story about the civil war that had been going on for millions of years. They gave all the toys character names, character backgrounds, etc. And Hassenfield Brothers, or Hasbro, are responsible for what we now know as Transformers. But the toys were originally produced under a different name by Takara, now known as Takara Tomy. So you'll see two versions of this on the shelf, this version here, as well as the Hasbro version, which isn't called Unite Warriors, it's called Combiner Wars. Big difference there. The Unite Warriors versions have different coloring, better colors for some, depending on your preference. They tend to have a stronger build quality. More movable joints, or at least sturdier joints, as well as more accurate coloring. Now, if you're someone that doesn't care about that sort of thing, or you're buying this for someone that doesn't care about that sort of thing, I would probably suggest going with the Combiner Wars version, because at least here in New Zealand, Unite Warriors version of this box here is $100 more expensive than the Combiner Wars version, and $100 can put a lot of food on the table. So if money is an issue, stay away from this line. But if you're a collector or you want something a bit stronger, a bit more robust, I'd probably recommend going for the Unite Warriors line. Now, just before we get too into it, I don't really have any decent equipment. I'm actually just holding this in my hand, not this one obviously, the other one. And just to sort of prove a point, let's take a look at my tripod. A clothes rack with one of these little spider things on it. Not exactly high tech, but I'm sure we can manage. Now, before I get into the part where we actually take this stuff out of the box, just want to show you the back. Now, pretty standard fare for a box, I'll admit. You know, there's a picture of Devastator himself, as well as the 6 figures that make him. One thing I will note that was pretty handy is this guide here, showing you how tall he's going to be when you set it up. And this was particularly useful when I was trying to figure out where the hell to put him, which ended up being right there with Superior and Menasor. Alright, so I'm going to cut away for a moment, try and put this phone on that tripod, and we'll get to the next part of me actually taking it out of the box. Alright. Okay, so here we have all the Pretty Maids in a row in their vehicular forms. Right. Now they're a lot bigger than I actually anticipated. Just to give a sense of scale, I'm 6'3", so my hand is, you know, largish. This here is overhaul at the back. That's pretty big. But since we're on to introductions, Overhaul, Mixmaster, Scavenger, Scrapper, Hook, and Bone Crusher. Now before we get on to the next part of transforming them into robot mode, one thing I'll say is that Hook and Overhaul here make the torso of Devastator. Now in the cartoons, when I was a kid, I always thought Hook here was the leader because he forms the top half with the head popping out. Now usually in the Scramble City style combiners, which are the 5-man teams like those two up there, the torso is considered the leader, so it was a fair assumption for me as a kid. However, for the Constructicons, who aren't Scramble City type combiners, the actual leader is Scrapper, who actually forms the right leg of Devastator. And this part here. Now, I don't know about you, but there's something appealing about being able to kick your enemies to death with your boss. I will, however, say that Hook is still considered second in command, but it is the right leg who is the actual boss. Okay, so and we're going to take all these guys into the Alright, so here we have the boys out in full force. Now let's take a look at our leader first. So this is Scrapper, the right leg, big boss of them all. See here in this version he's got this sort of crossbow blade weapony type thing here. This forms part of the chest piece of Devastator. Oh, you'll also notice that I just tipped him over. But before that, on the wheels, they actually have the grey, silver, chrome styling in the centerpiece. Whereas on the Hasbro version, the wheels are totally black. And now here we have Mixmaster. This double gun thing here forms the center of the chest piece, this part here. Now at the back here we have Bone Crusher, though dare I say it, with his lime greenness he doesn't look much like someone you'd expect to crush bones. Now one thing I'll say about this one is, and it may just be me, but I haven't been able to get this to clip properly. So he stands a little bit awkwardly. And his little missile launcher thing here forms one of the forearms of Devastator. Alright, at the back here we have Hook. Alright. Hook here, at least in my rose tinted memory, is the one that looks most like his cartoon counterpart to me. You also notice that his gun here actually forms the shaft of, or the barrel rather, of Devastator's gun. Scavenger, the other arm. He looks alright. Face is a bit rock'em sock'em robot, but overall he's not too bad. Once again, He's got a missile silo, so he forms the that forms the other forearm of Devastator. Now, as far as these 5 are concerned, they look pretty close to how they did in the cartoon. Yeah, even this guy. Long Haul over here, though, he's probably the bigger exception of how accurate they look compared to their cartoon appearances. So, Long Haul in the cartoons, he was like these guys, relatively sleek, relatively slender, however you want to put it. Whereas here, he's a big, hulking brute of a bot. Now, I'd say that this look here probably suits him more. His vehicle mode, it's a large dump truck, for sake of a better word. I know there is a better word, but still. So, for him to end up slender at the end of it, without any mass shifting, it kind of doesn't make as much sense as having this big bulk here. To look at, it kind of reminds me of Rhinox a little bit from Beast Wars. Even more so when Rhinox became Tankor during Beast Machines. Alright, so here's a bit of a quick look before we get on to the next stage. Alright, so I'm about to set this camera back up on our tripod, and we'll get on to turning these guys into the main event of the show, Devastator. Alright, so here he is. In the flesh, in the metal, whatever you prefer. It wasn't too bad, actually. It was a bit more difficult than the other combiners in the set, such as Superion or Menasor, for example. But overall, not too difficult. The only really difficult part was probably the chest piece here. Mainly because it clips into 4 different parts here, so you're requiring them all to be lined up in order to get the clips in the right place. However, it's not too bad. You wouldn't have too much difficulty with it. He is quite big, it is quite heavy, so it was a bit hard to get the pose that I originally wanted. However, look at him, even just standing, he's pretty impressive, pretty imposing, and I think he's going to look good up on the shelf with everything else. Alright. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. As you can probably tell by my upload history, I'm not really a YouTuber or anything. I think my last video was about 8 years ago. Just kind of made this one on the whim. So if you've got this far, cheers. I don't know if I'll be doing any more of this type of thing, but you never know. And with that, peace out. Stay frosty.